Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday, July 16th, 2017, and this is your fun fact of the day. Last week we covered the first part of Moses' life, from birth to escaping the edict that all Israelite firstborn children be killed, growing up in Pharaoh's household, murdering the Egyptian soldier, ending up in Midian, marrying Jethro's daughter. Now we have the return to Egypt, where Moses is going to perform some pretty incredible deeds on behalf of God. Moses goes back to Egypt with his family, his wife, and I think he has children at this point. Meets up with Aaron, his brother. They go before the Israelites, turn Moses' staff into a snake, turn water into blood. Performs deeds for the Israelites to show them, yes, God is here, his power is real, and it's about to get good. Moses and Aaron go before Pharaoh and implore Pharaoh to let the Israelites go into the wilderness that they may worship God. It wasn't just let them go, not every time at the least. There was a specific request that we Israelites go 3 days that way off into the wilderness, worship God, on our own. Just let us do this. Pharaoh says no. Not only does Pharaoh say no, he increases the Israelites' workload. They have all the energy to walk 3 days in the desert. I'll show them. He also made it a little bit harder to do their work. The ever classic taking the straw away so they couldn't make bricks the same way. You know, a bad ruler, asking for unreasonable demands out of his workers. The Israelites now had to collect the straw themselves in order to make the bricks that they still needed to make, and they still had to make the same amount that they did previously. Israelites get pretty upset at Moses and Aaron for this increased workload. I can understand, I would too. Moses and Aaron go before Pharaoh again, imploring him, let the Israelites go. Pharaoh refuses again. This time, Moses takes his staff and turns it into a snake before Pharaoh, performs his first miracle in front of him. Pharaoh summons his magicians, and they can do the same thing. They can make their wood animate like snakes. But Moses also picks his staff back up again, and it is a staff, not a snake. The magicians couldn't do that. Moses then takes it out on the Nile River, puts his staff in the river, and turns all the water into blood. Not just the river, though. All the water in Egypt turned to blood. Fish died, fountains went bad. The stench was awful. But the magicians could turn a bit of water into blood too, so Pharaoh was unconvinced. Israelites could not go. And for 7 days the water remained blood. This was no short-term trick. This was well, you're going to live with the consequences then. Moses goes to Pharaoh again. Second plague, because Pharaoh refuses. This brings on the frogs. Eventually all the frogs died. They had to pile them up. They started to stink. Aaron takes his staff, strikes the ground, brings next up gnats. The magicians failed to keep up at this point. They recognized, wow, this authority comes from something higher than us. But Pharaoh still refused. Moses goes to Pharaoh again, says, dude, it's only going to get worse. Pharaoh still refuses. In come the flies. But here's the thing though, only the Egyptians were affected by the flies. These plagues did not touch or harm the Israelites whatsoever. There was no flies in their camp, there were no gnats affecting them, there were no frogs in their place. They could probably still smell the dead frogs, but the frogs didn't bother them. Another warning, another refusal, plague number 5, all of the Israelites' livestock remains standing while all of Egypt's livestock falls down dead in the field. That's a different kind of famine, that's not good. Moses took some soot from a kiln from in front of Pharaoh and threw it into the air. And as the dust settled out over the land, as it touched people, they became infected with boils. Boils are not fun to deal with. Moses actually gave the people of Egypt a warning about what would come next. When Pharaoh refused again, down came the hail and fire. All the plants, all the trees were broken, all except in the Israelites' part of town. Pharaoh calls for Moses, acknowledges his sin, tells Moses to go back and call off the hail and the fire, which Moses does, and says, okay, hail and fire are gone, let us go. Pharaoh's like, actually, thanks for getting rid of the hail and fire, but no, you still can't leave. Pharaoh doesn't get it. Moses tries again. Pharaoh says no again. In comes the east wind, and on this east wind that blew all day and night came the locusts. I'm not sure what they had left to eat after the hail and the fire broke it all down and burned some of it up. And although livestock weren't really eating much anymore, being dead, so the locusts came in and Pharaoh saw they were bad, asked them to go away. Moses calls them away. Pharaoh still says no. Plague number 9 brings in days of darkness. 3 of them to be exact. Remember, they didn't have streetlights back then, or lamps, or much of anything beyond fire and the sun. So if there was darkness, really inhibited the sort of things they could do. As this was kind of a subsistence-living society, you needed to work. On the 3rd day, Pharaoh tries to bargain with Moses, saying he'll let the people go to worship, but all the flocks and livestock have to stay back in Egypt. Not good enough, Pharaoh. It's all or none. So Pharaoh says no. 10th and final plague is where we get a precursor to what we would see in Christ. Moses warns the people, the Israelite people, about the coming Passover, in that the people of Israel, in order to be spared, had to take the blood of one lamb that was 1 year old and spread it on both doorposts and the lintel above, all 3 bits of wood around the door, such that when the angel of the Lord passed through the land of Egypt in order to take away all the firstborn's life, the Israelites This angel, seeing the blood on their door, would be passed over by this angel and would not be harmed. Yes, the term is actually literal here. Israelites' livestock were even spared thanks to this Passover. Egypt suffered immensely due to Pharaoh's hardness of heart. Finally, Pharaoh says, fine, get out, be gone, whatever it takes to get all of this out of my land. The Israelites go to leave. Pharaoh tries to follow with all of his chariots. People of Israel get backed up against the Red Sea. Moses parts the Red Sea, and then pillars of fire and cloud block Pharaoh from following until the people get through the Red Sea, and then the Egyptians try to fall into the Red Sea, and the Red Sea folds up in on them, and they're gone, and Israelites all safe on the other side. Funny thing is, as the Israelites were on their way out, a lot of the Egyptian people said, here, fine, take it. Take whatever you want. Gold? Take the gold. You want food? Safe journey. All of this just to put God's people out of Egypt and into the wilderness, which would seem like a bit of a setback because, sure, they worked hard in Egypt, at least they had a place to live, a place to farm. Now they're nomads out in the desert, just wandering, where God will provide for them. He will provide food and water and anything they need, and more than they need, based on their grumblings, as we'll cover. But bear in mind, we are less than halfway through the entire book of Exodus. A lot of stories like to end off right here. Oh yay, successfully, the Israelites made it out of Egypt, they're free! The end. Not even close. Many things happened during this Exodus. The Exodus isn't done yet, just because we're out of Egypt, where they were being oppressed. Exodus is still happening until they get a lot further along, distance-wise and time-wise. In other news, today is National Ice Cream Day. I think we can make that happen. Mid-July? I don't see why not. Odds are it's blisteringly hot outside, and I don't like the heat. Ice cream is good by my standards. Hope you've enjoyed this fun fact of the day. See you tomorrow.